I picked up the phone with a smile on my face, my hands trembling just a little from excitement. My daughter had been distant lately, but I told myself it was just the stress of wedding planning. I wanted to hear her voice, to share in her joy, and maybe, just maybe, feel included in the most important day of her life. But when she answered, her tone was sharp, cold, unrecognizable. I asked her softly, "Sweetheart, when is the wedding? I'd love to know the date so I can be ready." Her reply cut through me like glass. "We already got married, Mom. We only invited people who really matter. Just send the beach house keys and stop being so dramatic." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind raced. How could my own child dismiss me as though I was nothing? After everything I gave, every sleepless night, every sacrifice, I didn't matter. Not to her. But I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't let her hear the pain in my voice. I smiled. I stayed silent. And I quietly hung up the phone. Inside, my heart was breaking, but in that silence, something else was born. A quiet strength, a seed of revenge. And 2 days later, that seed would bloom into a wedding gift so unforgettable, her husband's scream would echo through their house. I replay her words over and over in my head. "We already got married, Mom. We only invited people who really matter. Just send the beach house keys and stop being so dramatic." That single sentence has carved itself into my bones, echoing louder than any scream. No matter what I try to think about, it pushes its way back into my mind like a thorn under the skin. I sit there in silence after the call, phone still in my hand, staring into nothing. My living room feels smaller, darker. Even the clock on the wall ticks in slow, mocking beats. We already got married. People who really matter. I hear her voice, sharp and dismissive, as though the years I gave her meant absolutely nothing. I raised that girl. I carried her in my body for 9 long months. I held her when she was too small and fragile to hold up her own head. I nursed her through fevers, stayed awake through nights of ear infections, and braided her hair before school when my own hands ached from work. I stitched her costumes for school plays, clapped the loudest at her recitals, and stayed up with her through high school heartbreaks when her tears soaked my blouse. Every sacrifice, every choice I made, it was for her. And yet, with one phone call, she dismissed me, as if I was nothing but a name on a contact list, someone she could cross off whenever it suited her. The pain is not just sadness. It is betrayal. A betrayal deeper than any wound a stranger could inflict. Because this is my daughter, my flesh and blood, the one person I thought would never look at me and see a burden. I replay her words again. We only invited people who really matter. And I ask myself, who mattered more than me? Her friends, acquaintances she's known for a handful of years? Strangers who never wiped her tears or cleaned her scraped knees. The thought stings so badly I have to press my hand to my chest, as though I can physically hold the pieces of my breaking heart together. I think back to her father, how proud he was when she was born. He had held her in his arms, tears streaming down his face, whispering promises about the kind of life we would give her. He's gone now, but I kept those promises. I worked until my hands were raw. I sold jewelry, I postponed dreams. I lived frugally, so she would never go without. And this is how she chooses to repay me, by cutting me out of the most important day of her life. I grieve, truly grieve. Not just for the wedding I missed, but for the daughter I lost long before that moment. The girl I raised is not the same woman who spoke those words to me. Somewhere along the way, she let pride and arrogance take over. Somewhere she stopped seeing me as her mother, and started seeing me as a nuisance, someone to be cast aside when she no longer found me convenient. The grief feels endless, but inside that grief, another thought begins to stir. If I don't matter to her, then neither does what I've given her. I look around my house, the one her father and I built together, the furniture we bought, the photographs on the wall, the heirlooms passed down from generations. The beach house she demanded the keys to, The same house where she learned to swim, where she built sandcastles with her father, where she laughed and played and promised she'd never forget those days. All of it was made possible by me, by my sacrifices, by my late husband's work, by the family legacy she now takes for granted. She thinks it belongs to her simply because she asks for it. But it doesn't. None of it does. For the first time, I see things clearly. My daughter has mistaken my kindness for weakness. My silence, my endless giving, my sacrifices. She thinks they mean she can take whatever she wants. That she can erase me from her life but still enjoy everything I worked for. But if I don't matter, if she can look me in the eye and tell me I'm not someone who counts, then why should what I've given her matter? That thought sits heavy in my chest, powerful and unshakable. I remember the nights I worked double shifts just to pay her college tuition. The meals I skipped so she would have enough on her plate. The way I walked into stores and turned away from things I wanted because I knew she needed new shoes or school supplies instead. Every choice I made was with her in mind. Every sacrifice, every ounce of my energy, every dollar I earned, all funneled into making her life better. And she erased it all with one cruel sentence. The tears come then, hot and relentless. I don't even try to stop them. I sit in my chair and cry for the daughter I thought I knew, for the mother I tried to be, for the family I thought we were. My sobs echo in the silence of my house, each one a reminder that love is not always returned, that sacrifice is not always valued. But then, slowly, the tears dry, my breathing steadies, and in the silence that follows, something shifts inside me. I begin to realize that her cruelty has freed me. If I don't matter to her, then I don't owe her anything. Not my money, not my possessions, not the house, not the beach home, not even my time or my tears. For the first time, I see the truth. She has shown me where I stand in her life, and I will not beg for a place in it. I may not matter to her, but I matter to myself. And perhaps it's time she learns what happens when a mother she underestimated decides she will no longer be used. I sit in that quiet room, replaying her words once more. But this time the sting feels different. The pain is still there, but beneath it grows something new. A fire. A resolve. Her words may have excluded me from her wedding, but in doing so, she has unknowingly invited me into something far more powerful. A place of strength she will never see coming. And as I wipe the last of my tears, I know this. My silence tonight is not weakness. It is preparation. Because if I don't matter, then neither does what I've given her. And sooner than she thinks, she'll understand exactly what that means. The phone call had barely faded from my memory when my phone buzzed again. Not with an apology. Not with an ounce of regret or love. It was a text. A short, blunt message from my daughter. "Send the beach house keys. We need them for the honeymoon." That was it. No please, no thank you, no mom. I wish you could have been there at the wedding. Just entitlement. Raw, cold, and careless. I stared at those words until the screen dimmed. My hand trembled, but not from sadness this time. From anger. From disbelief. This was her follow-up? After telling me I didn't matter, after excluding me from the most important day of her life, the very next thing she did was demand something from me. As if I were nothing more than a key holder. A resource, a tool to be used and discarded. No apology, no love, only entitlement. My chest felt heavy, but my mind was crystal clear. I would not give her what she wanted, not in the way she expected. Because that beach house wasn't just property. It wasn't just a vacation spot. It was history. It was love. It was sacrifice. I remember the day her father and I bought that beach house. We were younger then, full of dreams, full of plans. The sun had been setting as we stood in front of the little white house by the shore, our hands clasped together, our hearts racing. The paint was peeling, the porch creaked, and the windows rattled in the wind, but to us, it was perfect. He looked at me and said, "This is where our children will make memories. This is where laughter will echo. This is where family will mean something. And he was right. Every board of that house carried our fingerprints. I can still feel the splinters in my hands from the weekends we spent sanding the wood. I remember the salty air clinging to our clothes as we painted the siding a brighter white, laughing when the paintbrush slipped and left streaks on our arms. I remember her, so small back then, running barefoot across the sand, her pigtails bouncing as she squealed at the waves. I remember teaching her how to swim in that ocean, her little arms flailing, her eyes wide with both fear and excitement. Her father had stood behind her, encouraging her, lifting her when she slipped under, telling her she was braver than she thought. Birthdays were celebrated there. Summers were lived there. That house wasn't just walls and wood. It was the keeper of our joy. It was the backdrop of our family's happiest moments. And now, she wanted it. She wanted it not because she valued it, not because she cherished the memories, but because it was convenient. A luxury. A place to flaunt on her honeymoon. Her honeymoon. A honeymoon I wasn't even meant to know about. The thought twisted my stomach. My daughter had replaced me at her wedding, and now she wanted to use the very heart of my family's legacy to celebrate her new life, without me. I could feel my husband's absence so strongly in that moment. What would he say if he saw the way she treated me now? Would he recognize the girl he once lifted onto his shoulders? Or would he shake his head in sorrow, the way I now did? Tears blurred my eyes, but only for a moment. Then something else burned them away. Resolve. Because I decided in that very moment, they will not enjoy it. At least not in the way they expect. I would not let her waltz into that beach house with her new husband, parading around as though the past didn't matter. As though the sacrifices, the sweat, the love her father and I poured into that place could be casually stripped away like old wallpaper. No, that house carried meaning. And meaning isn't something you can demand through a text message. I thought about the audacity of it all. My daughter, who had just told me I didn't matter, believed she still had the right to my generosity. She had reduced me to a gatekeeper, a landlord, an obstacle between her and the luxury she believed she deserved. But I am not an obstacle. I am the foundation. Without me, there would be no house. Without me, there would be no wedding, no dress, no education, no path that led her to where she is today. And if she cannot see that, then perhaps it's time she learns. I sat there in silence for a long time, holding my phone, rereading that message. The entitlement dripped off every letter. It didn't just sting. It awakened something in me. I thought of all the times she had rolled her eyes at me as a teenager, dismissing my advice. The times she had taken my hard-earned money without a word of thanks. The times she had expected me to clean up her messes, to shoulder her burdens, to step aside so she could shine. I had forgiven it all because that's what mothers do. We forgive, we excuse, we tell ourselves they'll grow out of it, that they'll understand one day. But this was different. This was not immaturity, this was not a phase, this was cruelty wrapped in entitlement, and I would not excuse it. The house she wanted was built on love, sacrifice, and memory. She could demand the keys all she wanted, but she could never demand the meaning behind them. I placed the phone down, and in that quiet room, I began to plan. Not with rage, not with shouting or insults, no. I planned with silence, with precision, with the kind of resolve that comes only when a heart has been broken so many times it finally turns to steel. She thought she could cut me out of her wedding, erase me from her life, and still benefit from what I gave her. But she was wrong. For the first time, I realized the true power I held. Not in the house itself, but in the choice of who I allowed to walk through its doors. And I decided, my daughter and her new husband would never walk through them. Not in the way they expected. What they would find instead would be something they could never forget. Because love may be patient, love may be forgiving, But even a mother's love has its limits. And mine had just been reached. I act normal, saying nothing. That's the first choice I make. After the phone call, after the text demanding the keys to the beach house, after the tears and the anger and the memories. I do not lash out. I do not call her back. I do not send a message fueled by pain. I act as though nothing has happened. On the outside, I am calm. I water the plants. I sweep the porch. I grocery shop like every other week. I bake a pie for the neighbor who just had surgery. If anyone looks at me, they see the same woman I've always been. Quiet, ordinary, predictable. But inside, a storm is brewing. Every word she said plays in my mind, but now, instead of breaking me, they forge me into something stronger. Each time I replay, "We already got married, Mom. We only invited people who really matter." It feels less like a knife and more like fuel. Silence. That is my weapon. Family whispers start to drift my way. A cousin calls to check in, but I can hear the hesitation in her voice. What she really wants to ask is, "Why weren't you at the wedding?" Neighbors who saw photos on social media tilt their heads sympathetically, their eyes scanning my face for signs of bitterness. Some ask directly, trying to sound casual. "So, I didn't see you in the pictures. Couldn't make it?" I don't answer. Not because I don't have an answer, but because my silence speaks louder. The less I explain, the more powerful I feel. My silence makes them uncomfortable. It makes them wonder. It creates gaps in their minds that they try to fill on their own. And those gaps? They always make the story bigger, heavier, more dramatic than anything I could ever say aloud. I realize quickly that my silence unsettles people far more than anger ever could. If I had shouted, if I had cursed her name, it would have been easy for them to dismiss me as bitter. But by staying quiet, I leave them guessing. They look at me differently now, as if I am carrying a secret. And maybe I am, because beneath the stillness, I am planning. At night, when the house is quiet, I sit in my chair and think. I think about every insult, every dismissal, every entitled demand. I think about the sacrifices I made, the long hours, the sleepless nights, the love I poured into raising a daughter who now calls me dramatic. And then I think about the gift, the wedding gift, not the one on a registry, not the one wrapped in shiny paper with a bow. No, this gift will not be chosen in a department store aisle. This gift will be crafted from truth, from memory, from consequence. I begin preparing in my mind. The plan unfolds slowly, like a flower blooming in the dark. At first, I am unsure. My heart aches. A part of me still longs for her to call, to apologize, to say she made a mistake. But every time I imagine that possibility, I see her text again. "Send the beach house keys." No apology, no love, only entitlement. And that vision hardens me again. I make a choice. There will be no second chances. Not this time. So I remain silent to the world, but in the privacy of my thoughts, I build. I collect every memory, every slight, every moment of pain, and I begin shaping them into something solid, something sharp, something that will pierce through her arrogance in a way my words never could. I tell myself, they think they've won. They think they've silenced me. But my silence is not surrender. My silence is strategy. The more I live in it, the more powerful I feel. I walk through my days like a shadow. When people bring up the wedding, I simply smile politely and change the subject. That smile unnerves them. They expect tears, they expect anger, but I give them nothing. Nothing but silence. And in that silence, I hold all the control. When I go to the grocery store, I hear two women whispering near the produce section, glancing my way. I know they've seen the photos online. My daughter in her white dress, her husband beaming, the caption gushing about the perfect day surrounded by everyone who truly matters. Everyone but me. I let them whisper. I let them speculate. I walk past with my head high, saying nothing. And in that moment, I feel untouchable, because I know something they don't. I know that while they gossip about my absence, while my daughter flaunts her picture-perfect life, a reckoning is coming. And it will not come with raised voices or slammed doors. It will come quietly, wrapped neatly, placed gently at their doorstep. A gift. A wedding gift they will never forget. Each night I sit with my husband's old photo, the one from our first summer at the beach house. I look at his smile, his arm draped around my shoulders, and I ask him silently, "What would you do? Would you forgive? Or would you make her see what she's done?" The photograph, of course, gives no answer. But deep down, I know. He was a man who believed in dignity, in strength, in teaching lessons that could not be ignored. And so I decide, I will carry his spirit in this. I will not scream. I will not humiliate myself with begging. I will deliver my message in silence, and my silence will be deafening. Day by day, my resolve strengthens. When another relative calls, their tone overly cheerful, asking, "So, when are you giving them the beach house for the honeymoon?" I smile into the receiver and say nothing of my plans. I let them believe whatever they wish, because the truth is not for them. Not yet. When my daughter sends another message, curt, impatient, "Mom, the keys. Don't make this difficult." I do not reply. I leave her words hanging in the digital void, unanswered. That silence unsettles her more than any argument could. I can almost picture her frowning at the screen, growing restless, wondering why I don't respond. And I imagine her turning to her husband, saying, "She's just being dramatic again." But no, this is not drama, this is design. Every day I stay silent, I grow stronger. Every word I withhold becomes part of my armor. And every memory of what she's done feeds the fire inside me. The world thinks I am passive. My daughter thinks I am defeated. But inside, I am sharpening my weapon. It won't be loud, it won't be messy. It will be quiet, precise, final. A wedding gift they'll never forget. And as I prepare, I feel something I haven't felt in years. Power. True power. Because silence, I've learned, is not emptiness. Silence is control. Silence is strength. Silence is the pause before the storm. And my storm is coming. I take my time. Carefully. Methodically. This is not something to be rushed. Not something to be done in a moment of anger. No. Anger burns too hot and too fast. What I am crafting must be slow, deliberate, almost surgical. Because the wound I intend to leave behind is not a scream, not a broken plate, not a door slammed in fury. It is truth. And truth cuts deeper than anything else. I sit at my old oak table, the one where I once helped her with school projects, where I rolled out dough for her favorite pies, where she used to sit swinging her little legs while asking me endless questions about the world. The same table now holds the tools for something very different. Not glue and glitter, not flour and sugar, but paper, pens, old photographs, letters, memories, pieces of a life she has chosen to dismiss. I think about what would hurt her most. Not money, not objects. She already assumes she has claim to all of that. The house, the heirlooms, everything her father and I built. That's what she wanted when she texted, wasn't it? The keys, the property, the entitlement she wears like a crown. But no, that's not where her weakness lies. Her weakness is in the truth of who I am, the truth of what I've given, the truth of how easily she cast it all aside. So that is what I will deliver. I begin with photographs. I open the cedar chest in the bedroom, the one I haven't touched in years. Inside are albums, envelopes stuffed with prints, scraps of life captured in glossy little rectangles. Her first birthday, frosting smeared across her cheeks. Her first day of kindergarten, hair tied in ribbons, backpack too big for her small frame. Vacations at the beach house, her tiny footprints in the sand as she held her father's hand. I spread them out on the table, my fingers trembling slightly at first, then steadying as the purpose fills me. Each photograph is a reminder, not of what I've lost, but of what she owes. I take out envelopes, heavy with paper, and begin sorting. Each one will hold a chapter of her life, not as she remembers it, but as it truly was. Written by the one who sacrificed, who stayed up late, who worked extra shifts, who cried silently when she thought no one was watching. The story she ignores, the story she erases, will now be preserved in ink. I begin to write. At first, the words flow like a wound opening. Raw, painful. Do you remember the time you wanted to quit soccer because the other girls were cruel? I sat with you all night telling you that you were strong enough to face them. And you did. You scored the winning goal. I was there, cheering louder than anyone. I pause, staring at the paper, tears blurring the ink. But then I wipe them away. My hand steadies. I continue. Do you remember the year your father got sick? And I worked 2 jobs so you wouldn't have to go without? You didn't see me collapsing on the bathroom floor at night from exhaustion. You only saw that Christmas was full of gifts, that your school trip was paid for. That was me. All me. Each letter I write is a blade, honed with memory, and with every stroke of the pen, my grief turns into something else, something sharper. I don't embellish, I don't dramatize. I write plainly, simply, truthfully. Because the truth is powerful enough on its own. The truth will be the weight in her chest when she opens this gift. I collect the letters and pair them with the photographs. Evidence, proof of what she wants to forget. The cake smeared across her cheeks, the smile on her first day of school. The summer evenings at the beach house where she laughed and splashed while her father and I watched with pride. I imagine her sitting there, opening the box, expecting jewelry or money, or maybe even the beach house keys. Instead, she will find her own life staring back at her, page after page, memory after memory, truth after truth. I smile, calm, unhurried, as I fold each letter, sliding it into an envelope with care. My hands do not shake anymore. My mind is steady. My heart, though still aching, beats with purpose. I take breaks only to brew tea, sip it slowly, then return to the task. I let the hours pass in silence. Outside, the world moves. Cars on the street, children laughing, neighbors mowing their lawns. But in here, time bends. I am not just a mother anymore. I am an architect of reckoning. I wrap the box carefully with steady hands. I choose a simple ribbon, nothing extravagant, nothing flashy. To the world, it looks like any other wedding gift. But to me, it is justice. Every fold of the paper, every crease of the ribbon, every knot tied with care feels symbolic. This is not vengeance fueled by chaos. This is order, precision, truth delivered like a stone dropped in still water, silent at first, but with ripples that will spread and spread until they cannot be ignored. When the box is finished, I place it in the center of the table and just look at it. It looks so harmless, just a gift, but I know better. Inside is everything she has chosen to forget, everything she has chosen to dismiss, everything she thought she buried by excluding me from her wedding, by calling me dramatic, by demanding what was never hers to take. This is my answer. And the beauty of it is that when she receives it, no one else will understand. To the wedding guests, to the friends, to the family, it will just look like a sentimental collection. But to her, it will be unbearable. Because she knows. She knows the truth she has tried so hard to erase. I lean back in my chair, fold my hands, and breathe deeply. The plan is simple. The delivery is quiet. The impact will be devastating. For the first time since that phone call, I feel peace. I do not need to shout. I do not need to beg. I do not need to demand. I only need to give. A gift. The kind of gift that will haunt her, because she will realize it cannot be returned, cannot be exchanged, cannot be ignored. It is the mirror she does not want to look into, handed to her with a ribbon. To the world, it's just a gift. To me, it's justice. 2 days later, the box waits on the edge of my kitchen table. I stare at it one last time, tracing the ribbon with my fingers. It looks harmless, ordinary, beautiful even. But inside lies everything she never wanted to face. Truth, memory, and consequence. I pick it up and feel its weight, not heavy with gold or jewelry, heavy with life, heavy with what she thought she could erase. Every photograph, every letter, every memory folded carefully, intentionally, all of it pointing back to her. I walk to the front door, holding it as if it were a fragile heartbeat in my hands. The sun has not yet risen fully, the street quiet except for the occasional distant car or early dog walker. Perfect timing, no witnesses, no interruptions. Just me, the box, and what must be done. I set the package carefully on their doorstep. I double-check the placement, ensuring it's perfectly visible, impossible to miss, yet unassuming. To the casual passerby, it is simply a gift waiting for a newlywed couple. I step back, breathe in slowly, and for a moment, I allow a flash of memory to overtake me. I remember holding her hand at the beach house, teaching her to swim in the shallow waves, laughing as she shrieked every time a wave brushed her toes. I remember her father, smiling as he held her high above the sand, telling her she was strong, fearless, and capable of anything. Those memories, once light and joyful, now fuel my calm resolve. She will see what she has discarded. She will feel the weight of what she has forgotten. I do not wait. I do not linger. I walk away, my steps steady, deliberate, echoing softly on the pavement. I don't glance back. There is no thrill in witnessing her reaction. That would be for later. My part is done. My silence has already spoken. Hours pass. I go about my day. I tend to the garden, I make tea, I fold laundry. I do all the things that mothers do, quietly, methodically. Yet the anticipation coils inside me like a spring, ready to release. Then the phone rings. I glance at the screen and see her name. My heart pauses. I answer, and immediately, chaos erupts on the other end. Her husband, screaming, shouting, almost incoherent. And then her voice. My daughter, broken, terrified, almost pleading. "Mom! What is this?" Her fear slices through me in an unexpected way, but not enough to stop the smile forming on my lips. I listen quietly as they stumble over each other's words. Her husband yelling, demanding to know what I've done. My daughter shaking, crying, begging for explanation. I do not speak immediately. I let them stew. I let the silence on my end amplify the chaos on theirs. Finally, I speak. Softly, calmly, my voice measured, deliberate. "I sent you a gift." I pause, letting the weight of those 2 words settle. "Open it." There is a long silence. I hear her hands shaking as she lifts the ribbon, carefully, almost reverently. She peels it back. She lifts the lid. I imagine her eyes scanning the letters, the photographs, the memories she believed she could ignore. The first flicker of recognition, disbelief, horror. That sharp intake of breath as she reads the words I wrote. "Do you remember the night you cried because you were afraid to start high school alone? I stayed up until 3, sitting in the hallway, holding your hand, telling you you were braver than you thought. Do you remember when your father was sick and I worked double shifts so you could still go on your school trips? You didn't see me exhausted on the bathroom floor. You only saw the life I provided." Each sentence hits her like a blow. She thought she had silenced me, excluded me, erased me. She was wrong. Her husband's screams pierce the room again. "What is this? Why are you doing this?" And I let the silence speak once more. I don't justify, I don't explain. I do not apologize. I do not negotiate, because my gift has already spoken. To my daughter, it is a mirror. Every memory, every truth, every sacrifice staring back at her. She cannot hide from it. She cannot ignore it. She cannot erase it. To the world, it is simply a gift. To me, it is justice. I hear her sobbing, choking on the words she wants to say but cannot. And in that sound, terror mixed with comprehension, I finally feel closure. Her voice cracks over the phone. Mom, I didn't know. I didn't realize. I let her trail off. I let the silence stretch, thick and heavy, exactly as I intended. She finally understands. Silence can be louder than anger. My gift has spoken. It doesn't need me to explain. It doesn't need me to witness it. The moment of truth is theirs. The moment of reckoning is theirs. And in the quiet that follows, I sit back and breathe. The storm has passed, but its echoes linger. She will remember this. She will feel it every time she looks at those photographs, reads those letters, recalls the words she cast aside. I haven't shouted, I have not screamed, I have not raged, I have acted, I have delivered. And sometimes action, precise, deliberate, silent action, carries more weight than 1,000 angry words ever could. I hang up the phone and smile. The lesson is complete. The message is delivered. 2 days, 1 package, a mother's patience, and a daughter's arrogance. And the echoes will never fade. For the first time since that call, since that text, since the exclusion from her wedding, I feel calm, powerful, whole. My gift has done its job, and I, finally, have mine. As I sit back and reflect on everything that has happened, I realize something important. Family betrayal cuts the deepest, sharper than any insult, colder than any stranger's cruelty. But I also learned something else. Silence. Silence can be stronger than any argument, louder than any shouting, more powerful than 100 angry words. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't beg. I simply acted. I let my patience, my resolve, and my carefully crafted gift do all the talking. And when they opened it, the truth I left for them was undeniable. My daughter and her husband finally understood. Sometimes the quietest actions carry the heaviest weight. My gift gave them the lesson they deserved. Not out of malice, but out of justice. A reflection of the love they took for granted, the sacrifices they ignored, and the mother they dismissed. This story is not about anger. It is about quiet strength. About the power of a woman who, despite being dismissed and overlooked, finally chose herself. I learned that revenge doesn't have to roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes it simply acts, leaving its mark long after the moment passes. And in that silence, I found my peace.